Now, begin to shake your hands, as if trying to flick cold water off your fingertips. Let that shaking travel up through your wrists, into your elbows, and up into your shoulders. Bounce your heels lightly, letting the mechanical vibration rise through your calves, your thighs, and into your hips. Keep this movement going for just 10 seconds. Feel that? A faint heat crawling across your skin, a tingling at the edges of your fingers, something in your chest that feels slightly less tight than it did moments ago. That was not a random sensation. That was your autonomic nervous system coming online. What you just experienced is the activation of deep proprioceptors, mechanoreceptors, and Golgi tendon organs embedded inside your connective tissue. When you shook your hands, you fired millions of these sensory receptors simultaneously. This massive kinetic signal travels up your spinal cord, not as a whisper, but as a flood. And your spinal cord has a gate. There is a structure in your central nervous system called the dorsal horn, a vital relay station that decides which inputs get priority access to your brain. Mechanical input from motion and vibration travels on the largest, fastest myelinated nerve pathways your body possesses, the A-beta fibers, conducting at speeds up to 70 meters per second. Conversely, stress signals, pain, and the slow chemical burn of cortisol travel on much smaller, slower fibers. When you flood the spinal gate with high-volume kinetic movement, you physically crowd out the stress signals. This is the established science of gate control theory, and your body has been waiting for you to run this program. Why have we been taught to suppress this reflex? Let us look at a scene played out on the African savanna. A gazelle has just escaped a cheetah. It did not survive by being vastly superior in speed. It survived by a margin of mere centimeters. Imagine its internal landscape. Its heart is hammering at 200 beats per minute. Its bloodstream is heavily saturated with adrenaline and cortisol. Its muscles are fully loaded with the chemical payload of absolute mortal terror. And then the chase ends. The gazelle stops. It stands in the tall grass and it begins to shake, not out of fear and not out of weakness. It trembles violently, deliberately. For 60 to 90 seconds, its legs shake, its flanks quiver, its head sways completely loose, and then it simply stops. It takes a single deep breath, walks away, and begins to graze calm, regulated, fully returned to physiological baseline, as if the near-death experience never happened. Trauma researchers have studied this exact phenomenon for decades. The shaking is not a consequence of the trauma, it is the physical completion of it. It is the nervous system's automated shutdown sequence, burning off the raw chemical fuel of survival, signaling the brain's stem that the threat has vanished, and unlocking the muscles from their defensive brace. Wild animals do not get post-traumatic stress disorder. Humans do. Have you ever wondered why? We were told, stop crying, pull yourself together, sit still, but stillness is not resolution. When you suppress that natural shake, you trap the survival chemistry inside your tissue. The adrenaline has nowhere to go. The cortisol continues to circulate, and the sympathetic nervous system stays active. The alarm remains on. This is why an argument in the morning can still make your neck tight at midnight. The event is over, but the chemistry is not. Now, where does this unresolved stress hide? It lives in your deepest muscle, the psoas major, the absolute physical vault of your fight or flight response. This rope of tissue anchors your spine to your pelvis. Contraction here means your body stays physically folded in defense. Shaking dissolves this hidden lock. But before we look at the cellular physics of how this mechanical release occurs, make sure you are subscribed to our channel so you never miss our somatic guides. Ready? To understand this, we must look at the human body not as a sack of meat and bones, but as a masterpiece of tensegrity, or tensional integrity, is an architectural principle where shape is maintained by a continuous web of tensioned cables, our muscles and fascia, holding rigid struts, our bones aloft. In a young, resilient system, gravity is not a crushing weight. It is an organising force distributed perfectly across this elastic web, but under chronic stress, this tensegrity collapses. The continuous downward gravitational force vector, represented by F-text gravity, det ceases to be evenly distributed. Instead, it concentrates directly onto your lower back, your knees, and your hip joints. Imagine a blackboard covered in complex white chalk drawings showing glowing force vectors. We see an arrow pointing down representing gravity and a counterforce vector, text compression, crushing your intervertebral discs. This is not just aging. It is a structural engineering failure. And the concrete that pours into this failure is your fascia. Fascia is a continuous, mechanically active web of collagen wrapping every muscle fibre, organ, and nerve, running continuously from your scalp to the soles of your feet. Under constant stress, this fluid web thickens, dries out, and stiffens. It begins to act less like a flexible sleeve and more like a rigid plaster cast, locking your joints into a permanent defensive posture. Think of it like a wet towel that has been wrung tightly and then left to dry. The fibres bind together at the twist. Simply unwinding your grip does not immediately release it. The structure has set. This is why slow, static stretching fails. You cannot stretch dried, bound collagen. You must agitate it. You must shake it to reintroduce fluidity. Have you noticed how your posture changes when you carry chronic stress? Does your spine feel compressed, or do your hips feel locked? When you introduce rapid, chaotic shaking, you are not doing light exercise. You are initiating a physics solution. The high-frequency mechanical oscillation vibrates the fascial matrix, causing the bound collagen crosslinks to break apart. Water rushes back into the dehydrated tissue. The stiff cast melts. Your tensegrity restores. But this mechanical release is only half of the story. Because while your connective tissue is unwinding, the rapid muscle firing is burning off the very fuel of your anxiety, epinephrine, circulating in your veins, screaming at your heart to beat, even though you are sitting perfectly still. Let's look at how we can burn that circulating survival fuel and finally return our deep biology to a state of absolute peaceful quiet. Ready? All right, let us trace this circulating chemistry. Because adrenaline is not merely a feeling, it is a physical fuel molecule, synthesized in your adrenal glands and poured into your bloodstream to prepare your muscles for extreme physical exertion. It shunts blood to your limbs, dilates your airways, and floods your cells with glucose. It is a chemical payload designed to be burned. When an animal runs or fights, this muscular contraction metabolizes the epinephrine. The fuel is spent, the food stream clears, and the biological balance is restored. But when you sit rigidly through a stress response, when you force your body to remain perfectly still while your boss speaks or while you stare at a screen, that fuel remains unconsumed. The cortisol continues to circulate. The muscle fibers remain loaded. Your sympathetic nervous system, which triggered the emergency alarm, receives no physiological signal that the crisis has passed because your body never ran, never fought, and never shook. The alarm is left idling in the background like a car engine running in a closed garage. Have you ever felt that silent, vibrating pressure inside your chest after a long day of sitting and staring at a screen, even though you didn't do anything physically demanding? Think of your nervous system not as a brain, but as a complex electrical circuit. When lightning strikes a power grid, the surge travels down the lines at extreme speeds. A surge protector does not think about the voltage. It does not meditate on the lightning. It trips a purely physical, mechanical response that redirects the excess voltage safely into the earth. The ground absorbs the charge, and the delicate appliances are saved. Your muscles are your body's ground wire, and shaking is your physiological surge protector, physically tripping. When you allow your body to shake, you are not losing control. You are redirecting thousands of millivolts of trapped survival energy out of your nervous system and into kinetic discharge. You are the only person in the room whose circuit breaker is actually functioning. Let us now examine how this electrical grounding alters your brainstem's threat radar, because you cannot think your way out of a survival response. You cannot convince your primitive brain that you are safe through logic, but you can show it by bypassing the conscious pathways. In Tireless, trace this exact neurochemical pathway together to see how safety is truly forged today. Deep in your core, completely hidden from your conscious view, lies a thick, powerful rope of tissue that holds the physical record of every stress response you have ever suppressed, the psoas major, running from your lumbar vertebrae down through the bowl of your pelvis, and attaching directly at the top of your femur. This is the largest and deepest hip flexor in the human body. Anatomists call it the fight or flight muscle, not as a metaphor, but as a literal, functional description. When your brain stem perceives danger, the psoas is the very first structure to contract. Pulling your torso forward and your knees upward, it is the mechanical engine of the defensive fetal curl. It carries the memory of the heated argument you sat through without moving, the presentation where you forced yourself to look perfectly composed while your heart was racing, and the sudden moments of shock where you held your breath, locked your jaw, and commanded your body to remain dead still. Have you ever felt a deep, tight ache in your hips, groin, or lower back during times of heavy emotional stress? When we sit for hours at a desk, the psoas remains in a state of chronic passive shortening. This is not merely a tight muscle. It is a continuous, bottom-up alarm signal to your brain stem. Your reticular activating system, the brain's primitive threat radar, reads this constant, contracted state as evidence that you are still in danger, still bracing, still waiting for a physical blow. The chemical alarm is left idling in the background, keeping your nervous system in low-grade vigilance. But how do we reach a muscle so deeply buried that no surface massage can touch it? The answer is not force, it is resonance. When the mechanical vibration of your heels striking the floor rises through your legs, it triggers an involuntary neurogenic tremor directly inside the psoas. Shaking dissolves this hidden lock, extending the lumbar spine, opening the pelvis, and forcing the core to let go. Let us now see how this profound somatic release triggers the ultimate cranial highway of safety and calm. Let us trace the longest cranial highway in your body, the vagus nerve, originating in your brainstem, traveling down through your neck, and branching into your chest, your heart, your lungs, and the deepest organs of your abdomen. This is the primary circuit of your parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest, recovery, and deep cellular longevity. But here is the secret that medical textbooks rarely explain. Approximately 80% of the fibers within the vagus nerve are sensory, carrying signals upward from your body to your brain, not the other way around. This is why you cannot simply tell your mind to calm down when your physical frame is rigidly locked in combat mode. Your thoughts are a reflection of your posture. Have you ever tried deep breathing or meditation during a panic attack, only to find your heart racing even faster? When you shake, the mechanical oscillation vibrates your entire thoracic cavity. It physically stimulates the sensory branches of the vagus nerve through the movement of your internal organs and the rhythmic rise and fall of your diaphragm. This is why deep breathing, only changes your atoms when your muscles are first completely unlocked. It is why drinking salt water in the morning to restore your cellular hydration only works if your vascular system is actually open to receive it. By shaking, you send a massive wave of safety data directly to your brain stem. Within seconds, your heart rate variability shifts, the tight, restricted capillaries in your skin dilate, and blood rushes back to your cold extremities. You are not performing relaxation. You are structurally forcing your autonomic system to stand down. The alarm is turned off. If you want to understand how this physical shift rewrites the threat radar in your brainstem, we must look at the reticular activating system, the ancient guardian that monitors your posture to decide if you live or die. This explains exactly where your stress goes when you exercise or deep breathe, unlocking your cellular potential and showing you how 60 seconds of shaking can completely save your vital life from progressive, age-accelerating biological burnout. Together, we can unlock this hidden system. Let us step back and look at the larger map of your longevity. Because your nervous system does not operate in isolation, every practice you have been told to perform to save your aging body is connected by a single underlying mechanical law. Consider the advice to drink salt water every morning. You are told this will restore your cellular hydration, balance your sodium-potassium pump, and wake up your brain. But if your body is locked in a state of chronic sympathetic defense, your blood vessels are constricted, your kidneys are retaining water, and those vital mineral ions cannot effectively cross the cell membranes. The salt water simply passes through a closed, rigid pipeline. The same mechanical block occurs when you try to use 5 minutes of deep breathing to alter your atoms. You sit quietly, trying to force your lungs to expand, hoping to shift your blood chemistry toward parasympathetic alkalinity. But if your psoas major is still tightly contracted, your diaphragm is physically pinned down, your chest remains rigid, your breathing stays shallow, and your cellular atoms remain starved of the oxygen they need to regenerate. You are fighting against your own physical architecture. This is where the physics of why stretching reverses aging finally becomes clear. Real stretching is not about touching your toes or mimicking a yoga pose. It is the deliberate application of tension to break the matted collagen crosslinks in your aging fascia. When you stretch correctly, you are pulling water back into the dried tense gritty sheets of your connective tissue, reversing the physical drying process that characterizes biological aging. But this physical work cannot happen if your nervous system is still screaming that you are under attack. It is also why we must ask, where does your stress go when you exercise? If you run or lift weights with a rigid, guarded frame, you are simply loading more force onto your already compressed joints. You are wearing down the cartilage instead of flushing the tissue. Your exercise becomes a physical stressor rather than a release. Even the cognitive habit of why you must talk to yourself every day is dictated by this somatic loop. Your internal dialogue is a direct translation of your vagal state. A threatened brainstem cannot generate thoughts of peace or creativity. It can only scan for enemies and generate worry. Every one of these viral health secrets is locked behind the same gate. 60 seconds of shaking is the key that unlocks them all. It bridges the gap between your physical structure and your biochemical state, creating a clean slate where your longevity protocols can finally succeed. Let us look at how we finish this. Ready? Now, let us look at how this profound physiological transition translates into your daily lived experience, because your body is not a static sculpture, but an active chemical engine constantly searching for homeostasis. When you hold your breath or brace your muscles, you are essentially choking your cells, depriving them of the delicate electrical signals they need to communicate safety. But when you engage in this 60-second kinetic shake, you are physically forcing your circulatory system to reopen the gates. Before we drop into the physical blueprint of this practice, we must design the precise mental state required to allow the neurogenic tremors to take over. Have you ever noticed how your mind races the moment you try to lie down and sleep, as if your brain has saved all its worries for the dark? This racing mind is because your brainstem reads your residual physical tension as an active threat. It assumes that since your deepest core muscles are tight, you must still be hiding from the predator, and so it keeps you awake to survive. Your racing thoughts are not the cause of your insomnia. They are the direct symptom of a body that has not physically completed its survival cycle. When you stand beside your bed tonight, you are going to change the data your brainstem is receiving. You are going to use your skeletal muscles as the ground wire to discharge the accumulated voltage of modern life. You are going to do what the gazelle has done for millions of years, shake, not out of fear, but as an act of absolute biological mastery. This is the true meaning of somatic longevity, not of avoiding stress, but possessing a reliable physical system for letting it go. This is how we prevent our bodies from solidifying into the rigid, dehydrated shape of our daily worries. We return our tissues to a fluid state. We restore our kinetic tensegrity, and we allow our nervous system to run its natural shutdown sequence. Let us now step into the exact physical blueprint, the 3 precise low-friction steps you will take tonight. To initiate this 60-second biological reset, let's prepare to ground the charge. Take a slow, quiet breath, feel the ground beneath your feet, and let the skeletal frame begin to yield to gravity. Let us perform the 60-second reset together, right now. Stand beside your bed or wherever you are standing, and place your feet slightly wider than your hips. Let your toes flare outward at a natural, comfortable angle. This is your physical foundation, the structural base of your tensegrity temple. Drop your chin slightly, let your eyes close, and feel the heavy grounding pull of gravity beneath your feet. Now begin with the hands. Shake them from the wrists, as if you are flicking cold drops of water off the tips of your fingers. Let the vibration travel upward through your forearms and allow your elbows to go completely soft. Now add the heels. Rhythmically lift and drop your heels against the floor, creating a deep, resonant mechanical bounce. Do not jump. Simply let the weight of your body drop back down into the ground, letting the physical shock wave travel up through your calves, your knees, and directly into the bowl of your pelvis. Let the hips sway. Let your shoulders bounce. Let your jaw go loose, slightly parting your teeth. Keep this motion going. Do not stop. Let it become chaotic and completely loose. For the next 30 seconds, you are not practicing. You are purging. You are sending the fastest mechanical signals up your nerve pathways to force the stress radar in your brain to stand down completely. You are pumping your lymphatic fluids to clear out the inflammatory elements sitting in your joints, and you are burning off the unspent cortisol idling in your psoas muscle. Feel the deep warmth spreading across your skin. Feel the tingling at your fingertips as your blood vessels dilate, and let flow return to your hands. Take one deep, quiet breath. Let it rise into your chest and let it out with a soft sigh. Stop moving and stand completely still. Feel the space in your chest. Feel the peaceful weight of your limbs. Your mind did not calm you down. Your body did it. The chase is over. You are safe. You are vital.